Hi guys, welcome back to another fun DIY video here aboard good old Athena. In this video we're gonna finish up painting inside the engine compartment. I'm gonna figure out the layout for all the hoses in there and build a prototype for the new diesel tank. Over the last month I've removed the engine and the sail drive, and I cut up the old diesel tank because it was too big to remove from the engine compartment in any other way. I've also done a bunch of other repairs in there, but we're finally ready to start the fun part, the rebuilding part. On the way here I picked up some wood and some sheets of 3mm MDF to make a prototype for the new tank. If you're a regular viewer of my channel and you saw last weekend's video, this is gonna get a little bit confusing because last weekend I hopefully finished applying primer to the inside of the engine compartment, but I'm shooting this video at the same time. So in fact this is last Saturday, so don't be confused by the fact that there's no primer in the engine compartment. See, like I said, no primer. I know from bitter experience that this part here is the most narrow part of the engine compartment. I know that because the old tank didn't fit through there. So I spent a couple of hours swearing in salty Danish. Something along the lines of "for satan or helvete også." So I want to make absolutely sure that the new diesel tank will fit through here. And it looks like this is 40 centimeters plus a stir stick, which turns out to be roughly 65 centimeters. Having spent a fair bit of time fixing up boats over the last couple of years, I just want to make absolutely sure that's the same all the way down. So a tank that's 65 centimeters wide will fit through this opening, and as you can see, this is the narrowest bit in the entire engine compartment. But just for good luck, I'm gonna knock off 2 centimeters and we're gonna make the new tank 63 centimeters wide. 63 centimeters wide. As to the shape of the new tank, I can go ahead and cheat a little bit. This is 1/2 of the old diesel tank, and we can just go ahead and copy some measurements off of this. This old diesel tank sat so that the top of it was basically horizontal, and I really like that because that means the bottom here is sloping so that there's a low spot inside of the tank. Because that means any water or dirt that ends up in the tank will slowly gravitate towards this area down here. And I can take advantage of that. But for now, let's just grab some measurements for this and we'll get back to that a little later. The depth is roughly 65 centimeters, but I'm gonna knock a little bit off of that to give myself some more room behind the engine. So let's say 60 centimeters. Here in the back, it is 35.5. In the front, it's 50.5 centimeter, but I'm also gonna knock a little bit off the height to give myself better access into the tank. So I wanted it 63 centimeters wide, and I wanted a depth of 60 centimeters. And let's just say we knock off another 5 centimeters of the height. So that puts us at 45.5 centimeters in the front and 30.5 centimeters in the back. But the astute will have noted that I have made a mistake because I've moved this part of the tank further aft. I've grabbed this measurement at the wrong place. So instead of the 50 centimeters, it is actually 49, subtract the 5, then we're at 44. Would that have made a huge difference? I doubt it. Provided my brain hasn't turned to mush from all of the fumes, that gives me roughly 140 liters in the tank. That's pretty good considering this is basically just a day tank. But even if that wasn't the case, 140 liters still gives me 2 to 3 days worth of motoring. What I want to figure out with this prototype is mainly where to put the connections on the tank so that I can route the hoses inside the engine compartment in the most efficient way. Sure, some might claim that I'm putting a little too much effort into this prototype, but you know what? I'm having fun. And what is time except currency to have fun? And there we go, a somewhat overbuilt prototype. This is a pretty nice box, if I do say so myself, and there is certainly joy to be found in building even something as simple as a wooden box. Tiny little unforeseen complication. I can't really shove my lovely looking prototype here into the engine compartment today because I've got some epoxy curing in there. And while it is a lovely box, I don't want it to become a permanent fixture here in the boat. So yeah, but at least the prototype is ready for next weekend. Hi guys, welcome to the winter wonderland that is Denmark. It's a balmy -7 degrees Celsius today, and I was planning on doing a bit of painting, but as you can see, I've got a tarp I need to fix. I'd say this thing did a reasonably good job. It survived 2 or 3 occurrences of gale force winds, so I can't really complain too much. What you just saw was shot yesterday. I struggled with the tarps for about an hour, but in the end, it was too cold and too windy for me to do anything, so I just threw in the towel. With all the snow up on deck and the fact that I don't have any lifelines, it was just too dangerous. The wind is supposed to die down on Sunday, so until then I'll just have to leave Athena partly uncovered. So far, I've just got 1 coat of primer on the inside of the engine compartment. That's the coat you saw me apply last weekend. Given the current temperatures, the minimal overcoating interval is between 24 and 48 hours. And that means today is my very last chance to get on a 2nd coat of primer if I want to be able to apply top coat this weekend. In the case of the engine compartment, I'm using the primer solely to get better adhesion between the top coat and the surface. I don't really need much of a moisture barrier in there, so 2 coats should be just fine. I'm not going to show you guys me painting green on green. That wouldn't make for a very interesting video, so I'll go ahead and do that off camera. But before I do that, we could shove the prototype diesel tank in there to see what that's going to look like. By building this prototype, not only am I completely sure it'll actually fit into the engine compartment, but I'll also be sure that it'll fit up through the companionway. I don't know about you guys, but I would be hard pressed to come up with something more embarrassing than to order a new diesel tank and then to find out that it doesn't even fit through the companionway. Ta-da! I think this is gonna look pretty dang cool. I'm glad I've lowered it a little bit. That way access through the 2 sides here is easier, and also you can easily see over the tank. The engine is roughly the same height as the tank is there, so yeah, I think this is gonna look pretty dang spiffy. One of the other reasons I wanted to build this prototype was so that I could shove it in here and then figure out where to put all of the connections on the new tank so that I can run the hoses in the best possible way. But I think we'll get back to that this weekend. I'm going to go ahead and get started applying that 2nd coat of primer and enjoy the wonderful fumes that comes along with that. Hopefully by the time we get to Friday, I'll still be able to count to 10. 8, 9, 10. Looks like the old noggin still kinda works. And in a bit of extra good news, it looks like the pesky snow is going to melt sometime early next week, which means I can put up the new tarp. Of course, to me, this is pesky snow. To my Icelandic sheepdog Jökull, it's heaven. He absolutely loves the stuff. Later today, I can go ahead and apply the 1st coat of Sigmadur 550 in the engine compartment. But until then, why don't we just go ahead and figure out the location of the connections on the new tank. I'll apologize in advance because the next 30 seconds or so are going to be totally off topic, but it's kind of cool, so please bear with me. I'm going to be doing a lot of yammering on today, so I wanted to grab a drink of water so that I don't lose my voice. And I have 2 bottles of bottled water here aboard the boat that's been sitting here for months. They were both unopened. Now one was frozen solid and the other one didn't have a single ice crystal in it. I opened the bottle without any ice crystals in it, and just like that, the crystals started forming right there in front of my eyes. Now the footage you're seeing here is sped up slightly, but I could easily see them just growing. What you're seeing here is real time, and as you can see, well, the ice crystals are just forming. That's so cool. That little delightful detour out of the way, let's get back to my future diesel tank. I haven't made up my mind when it comes to the material the tank will be made of. I'm kind of flip-flopping between plastic and stainless steel. Both have pros, both have cons, and I know there's a little bit of religion involved in that decision too. So yeah, but the good news is I've got the outside dimensions here, so I've got another couple of days until I absolutely need to make up my mind. So yeah, there's time for you guys to cast your vote down in the comment section. Plastic or stainless steel? No matter the choice of material, I will need some way of getting diesel in and out of the tank. Ta-da! Stainless steel fittings. My plan is to have the tank made with plenty of half-inch threaded connections, way more than I need for now, just to have it be a little bit future-proof. And the ones I don't need, I can simply just plug up. Of course, not all of these are 1/2 inch, but for the smaller ones, I can use a reduction to go up to 1/2 inch. And then in case at some point I need to replace one of these with something that requires 1/2 inch, well, I'll just remove the reduction. It's kind of hard to believe, but this little pile here is the rough equivalent of $70 US worth of stainless steel fittings. It looks like the web shop I ordered from messed up my order. I was supposed to have 2 of these 10mm hose barbs, but that's not important. This was just to show you guys how I plan on making the connections to the tank. Getting diesel into the tank is going to be the easy part. This, for instance, is the connection to the deck fill, and it's just going to sit on top of the tank, and that's going to be it. Now that we are on the topic of getting diesel into the tank, one way is to use the deck fill, another one is to transfer diesel through this one from one of the other diesel tanks I'll have here aboard Athena. I plan on having 5 or 6 separate diesel tanks here aboard Athena, but just consider that a teaser for a future video. Let's get back to the fittings. Of course, I'll also need to be able to get diesel out of the tank somehow. So for instance, this one and this one is the supply and the return from the diesel engine. So on this fitting here, I'll need some kind of pickup tube because I still want this fitting to be mounted on top of the tank. I'm hoping I can get someone to weld a piece of stainless steel tube onto this, either directly onto the fitting itself or inside of this reduction here, but we'll see how that goes. To figure out the number of connections on the tank, I've been at it again with pen and paper. Please excuse the somewhat crude drawing and don't pay attention to where the connections are located right now. That's going to change later today. This is mainly just to figure out how many connections I need. So I'll need a supply and a return for the diesel engine. I'll need a supply and a return for a fuel polisher, a Raycor P510. I'll include a link for that in the description, and we'll also get back to that in one of the upcoming videos. Then I'll need a supply for the reflex stove stay tank, so I can top that off. And I'll need a big hole for an ultrasonic tank level sensor. I'll need the connection for the deck fill, for a vent, and then for that little connection to the other fuel tanks here aboard the boat. I've decided I want to add 2 inspection ports or hatches, one on each side of this baffle that's going to be in the center of the tank here, and I'm probably also going to add another baffle in this direction here. This is a rather small tank at 140 liters, so I doubt I really need the 2 baffles, but I was talking to one of the really smart guys from the marina, and he said by adding that second baffle, that'll stiffen up the tank a lot, and it won't add a lot of cost, so I think that's a pretty cool idea. Before anybody comments, I mentioned that fuel polishing unit from Raycor, the P510. I will also have a Raycor 500 series filter on the supply for the engine. Now, sadly, I don't have room for one of the fancy double ones where you can switch between the filters, but that's okay. I think a single one is fine, especially considering the fact that I've got that P510 circulating the diesel inside of this tank continuously. This is what the tank looks like without the forward support underneath there, so I'll have to build something there to raise up the front part, and hopefully something that I can sort of secure the tank to also, but I'll hold off on building that until I've got the final tank. I've been looking at the photos I took of the engine compartment before tearing everything out of there, and it looks like the only thing that interferes with the top of the diesel tank is the exhaust from the engine. I'm going to keep it like that because that's basically the only way that makes sense. I just have to make sure I don't put any connections up on top of the diesel tank right about here. I think it makes a lot of sense to put the connection to the deck fill in the aft end of the tank because the deck fill is going to be located somewhere out here. Something like this, and there's still plenty of room for the hose that connects to the drain from the cockpit to go behind the exhaust. This is turning out to be quite the little delightful head scratcher. There are some things that are a given though. Turns out I'm actually pretty pleased with my first idea here. Having these three connections, the deck fill, the vent, and the fuel transfer connection back in the aft end of the tank, I think that makes a lot of sense. And of course I also need to put all of the pickups at the front of the tank because of the shape of the tank, because this is the deepest part. If I put the pickups back here, there's no point in having this triangular part of the tank. I think it makes a lot of sense to have the returns located relatively close to the pickups. That'll just make for neater hose routing. The thing that's causing me quite a bit of head scratching right now is how do I run these hoses here in a neat fashion? I think today might be my lucky day. Remember that guy I told you about a little earlier? The one that had the idea of putting in the extra baffle in the diesel tank? He just swung by to say hi, and he had a great idea of how to run the hoses. My original idea was to use some hose spout fittings and have those come off the top of the tank here, and then simply just clamp some hoses onto those and call it a day. But my buddy's idea, which is much, much better, was to use two 90-degree fittings and then come down the side here with a stainless steel pipe and then have the hose connect to that pipe further down or off to the side. That is going to look a whole lot neater, and also I won't have this hose flapping around up here chafing and wearing out prematurely. This is gonna be freaking awesome. So this is roughly what the front of the tank is gonna look like. These are stainless steel pipes coming down, bending off to the side. Then there's gonna be a flexible connection here, and then I could go ahead and put more stainless steel pipes along the plywood side of the engine compartment. Oh, that would look so freaking nice. Just imagine those stainless steel pipes coming down the front of the tank here, all parallel and nice and bending off at 90 degrees here, and then there's a flexible connection, and then more stainless steel pipes along the side here, all parallel and nice. This is gonna be so freaking spiffy. Just in case you can't tell, I am really, really excited about this. But I think the last thing I need to figure out before I can pull the prototype back out again is just the location of the two inspection ports. I think it was a good call to lower the tank 5 centimeters. There's a lot better access to this area than before. So I think I'm just going to put the two inspection ports, one on each side, right here in the middle. That way, if I have a baffle going this way, I can still access both sides of the tank. I know this video is just a whole bunch of yammering on, but please bear with me. Just a few more minutes and we'll get to the painting. So this is the back of the tank. Here are those three connections. The black dotted lines here are the baffles. I've got the two inspection ports here, and then I've added this bit here, which is for the ultrasonic tank level monitor. This will need a focus tube, but mounted it will look roughly something like this. Before I go ahead and send out the drawings for quotes, I will need to make absolutely sure where to have the threaded connections here for this awesome looking bend here. And I can't really do that before I've got the fittings I'll use, so yeah, I'll have to get those ordered, and then within a couple of days I should be able to get this all drawn up and send it out for some quotes. And that's great news, because that means you guys get to berate me down in the comment section for all the horrible choices I've made on this diesel tank before I actually go ahead and order it. Enough yammering on. Well, almost. Let's talk about paint. As a top coat, I'll be using Sigmadur 550. This is the same stuff I used up on deck, and it's pretty awesome. And it cures down to -5 degrees Celsius. The mix ratio is 88 to 12, so I've gone ahead and marked that on a stir stick. I'll put my mask on in just a few seconds, but it is funny how the smell of this paint just brings me instantly back to when I was painting the deck a few months back. Ta-da! Now bear in mind this is just the first coat, so that's why it's looking a little bit light. But still, this looks pretty good. I'm feeling really good about this engine compartment. That fresh coat of paint did a lot, and also the promise of lots of stainless steel pipes in there, that has me pretty excited. But as you can see, it's starting to get dark out, and I feel like I've yammered on enough for one video, so I'm gonna head back to Obelix and take Euclid for a long walk, and I'll see you guys next weekend. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like. See you!